Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for sharing the live tonight. Thank you, everybody, for posting your questions. If you haven't done so yet, there's plenty of time to do that. Really looking forward to having this conversation and talking about in-youth suicide. So just a little tiny bit of an introduction, because we don't want to hear about me all night. That's not what this is about. But you all know my name's Leanne. I'm the clinical lead for Youth in Search. So I've been working for this amazing organisation for almost 2 years. And I say that because there's something pretty special about what we do at Youth in Search. And that uniqueness has absolutely nothing to do with me and everything to do with the young leaders and the young people that come into our program. So it's pretty special. So when I attended my first workshop, look, I was pretty blown away. The transformation, the mateship, the peer support, it's like nothing I've ever seen. So hence why I'm here and hence why I'm so passionate about what we do. So being peer-to-peer means that young people are at the centre of everything we do. And in fact, a journalist actually asked me today, he said, Leanne, what would you say to the federal government about, how they should invest their money into youth mental health? And I said, well, that's easy. Ask them. Don't ask people like me. What would we know? Ask young people. Ask young people that have lived experience, because they're the experts. So that's what we're doing tonight. We're here to talk to the experts. We want to hear their voices. We want to hear their stories. And if we're lucky, they might even share with us their advice and tips on maybe how to help someone that you might be worried about, how to reach out to someone, and maybe even share with us what helped them. What was something that happened for them that actually gave them that level of support. So why youth suicide? Well, look, youth suicide is still the biggest killer of young Australians. And for every suicide, there's about 1 to 200 attempts, which is just astronomical. And it's mind-blowing when you kind of think of the extent of this problem. And it's everybody's problem. We're all in this together, and that's what this is about. So we are fortunate to have both sides of government who are investing in this problem. We had a talk last night, a virtual meeting last night with a number of members of parliament, and it's really encouraging to see that there is investment. Discussions are happening, things are happening, and they are moving in the right direction. But we're impatient, because the longer we wait for the wheels to turn, the more lives we're losing. And we've got to get to zero. There's just no question about it. We have to get to zero. So I just wanted to share with you something that I learned today. Today I learned about 2 youth suicides, a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old, and both had been subjected to bullying. And look, it hit me really, I'm getting emotional now. It hit me really, really hard today. And I don't know whether it's because I've got a 12-year-old son. I don't know whether it's because I've been banging on about this all week, but I've been thinking about these families all day. They're in my mind right now all day. And I can't help but think, what if? And that's the question, isn't it? What if? What does a world with zero suicide look like? And how different is that world to the one we're currently living in? It's a bit overwhelming to think about, but it is possible. It really, really is. And I think if you think about it on your own, it's hideously overwhelming, because you think, well, what on earth can I do? What can I do? But just stick with me, because imagine for a moment if we all just focused on the people around us. Just imagine if we just focused on being kind, on checking in and listening to those people in our little circle. If we all did that, can you imagine the impact that would have? And before I stop talking, I want to share with you something one of our leaders posted today. And I won't mention who it was, because I haven't even asked her whether it's okay for me to share this, but she posted this. Separate, we are only one stone in an ocean of pebbles, but together we have the capability of being a tsunami of change in a world that needs it more than ever. I just love that, because really what that says is that on our own, this is overwhelming. But here's the thing, we're not on our own. We're not on our own. We're in this together. And if we all keep thinking about it in that way, then I reckon we can have a pretty amazing impact. So look, I've talked enough, more than enough. Tonight I'll be joined by a couple of our amazing leaders. I'll also be joined by the very beautiful Brooke, and also Swag on the Beat. They'll be sharing some tips with us. But first up, I really want to hear from Rikki. It's been a busy day for Rikki, because Rikki started the day really early doing a live chat with Channel 10 with Sarah and Tristan. But it's been a very long day, which is probably why I think we've lost her. To be honest, I think she's lost her connection. And we know this because Rikki is joining us from regional Queensland and she doesn't have the best internet connection. Therein lies part of the problem, I reckon, about our regional youth. It's fine to say we have telehealth, isn't it? But if they don't have internet and access, then that makes it really, really difficult. So I think we've lost Rikki's connection, so we might just hang in there. I think we might have Brooke. The beautiful Brooke is just gorgeous, and she's with us wanting to share, or hopefully wanting to share her story. So I might bring Brooke into the room with us. Hey, Brooke, how you going? Oh, no, I can't hear your audio.
Am I here?
Yes, I can hear you. Awesome. And you're wearing a T-shirt. That's brilliant.
I got my pin.
Oh, yep, got the pin. How good is it?
So good.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
So, look, I guess I want to start off by just asking you, why is this issue important for you?
I have a really bad mental health history. I first started off suffering PTSD from workplace bullying and harassment. And it was an experience I didn't expect because no one around me had any mental health history. So I felt really alone when it first happened, especially anxiety. And it was something I could never explain to someone. It came to the point that I couldn't return to work and I was scraping through life because it was a financial issue then. And it's something that I guess I can resonate to because of the pandemic. We're all financially struggling at the moment. So I know exactly how that feels because I was selling my clothes to pay for my everyday needs. Like it came to the point that I almost had no wardrobe. I did social media as a hobby back then, but I never had an income for me. And I decided because I can't return to work, it was physically not possible for me. I was just having panic attacks walking in, that I would turn social media into an income. And I was very fortunate to be able to do that. It wasn't sustainable at the start, that's for sure. I was still selling my clothes while I was doing it. And then it turned to depression because I unfortunately lost my auntie not soon longer after that. And with that, we gained her 2 children. So we inherited them. And it was like a whirlwind of emotions because I didn't have to be just strong for me. I had to be strong for these 2 children that just came into our lives. And I was pretty much the second parent. And then I also had to help my own family because we just lost my auntie. So it was honestly really hard because I felt so alone from the anxiety at the start and I didn't understand what I was going through and no one around me did. And then it went to depression and then my whole family was in like having this trauma at the same time.
Oh my gosh, Brooke, there's so much there. But, you know, what I'm hearing is that through all of that, I mean, I guess you had no choice, right? You had to just keep going. You know?
You had to put, especially for the kids, like losing their mum is a lot. So you have to make sure you're there and that support for them.
How did you do that? How did you keep going?
It was honestly the hardest thing I've ever been through. And I guess the only thing that was helpful for me was actually acknowledging that I was depressed. For a long time, I've always been like the person, like the big sister. You know how like a big sister like cleans up all the mess and like organizes everything. I don't know if that's just my personality or my big sister trait, but I was always that person. So I was always helping mum with appointments to go to lawyers because we're going through all this, you know, what the mumble jumble of a death is. And I was always that glue. And then so I had to really acknowledge that I was actually falling apart and I can't help other people if my cup's not full first.
Yeah.
So that was the first big thing. Like I just had to acknowledge I'm not okay. And from there, it was like a roll-on effect of if I help myself, I can help my family.
Wow. That's a really brave thing to acknowledge, isn't it? Particularly when you feel you've got everybody that's relying on you to be strong. And it happens to a lot of us, doesn't it? And then to actually be able to say, I can't be strong all the time. I'm actually struggling. So did you reach out for help or did you talk to someone?
Yeah, so I think that's the second part, like, and we're going into like government funding and all that. It's really expensive. And from being that girl that was selling her clothes to make do pretty much, I couldn't afford to go to these appointments. So I was very lucky the second time going through more the depression side of it, that I had that family support because we were all going through the same thing. But yeah, it was really hard to reach out from a funding point of view because it can be really expensive.
Really expensive and really hard to know where to start, right? Like,
Yeah.
where do you go? And when you've got all those feelings and all that pain, I guess it's hard to be able
And then
to.
the trust too. Like you want to find someone, especially when, like, at my age, I don't have my own GP that I go to all the time. It's really hard to find someone that you can completely trust. So I didn't even have a GP that could be like, look, you've known me my whole life and this is what's happened next. It was like I had to start from scratch every time I went to a next appointment. So it was like I was redigging everything, and it almost didn't feel real anymore because I was reliving the story every time I talked about it, to the point that it just felt like a fairy tale story I kept talking. It wasn't actually my real life.
Yeah.
So it becomes really hard because you have to keep digging it up every time you go to an appointment.
Did you find someone?
Yes and no. I feel like I kind of didn't like the system because of it, and it's really hard because I did have a doctor that didn't validate my emotions, and it led to like gut health problems because your brain's your gut, and then I had all these like dietary problems. I ended up being intolerant to everything because I wasn't eating properly. So it honestly, mental health is huge on your body, like inside and out. And yeah, it came to the point that I had to fix my gut to help my head, and yeah, it just became all over experience by the end of it.
So I think that sort of experience that you talked about is, when you go and see a health professional and they don't validate, they don't get it, often that's enough to kind of turn someone away completely. So I guess
Yeah.
what advice would you give someone that's maybe had that experience of seeing a health professional and it's just not gone the way that they'd hoped?
I think, as like common question and answer this is talking about it, because going back to where I started, I didn't have anyone around me talking about it, to the point that even on people on this live, even if you don't have any mental health history, you can at least be the voice of people that do. So talking about it and breaking that stigma and that taboo is like the best thing that you can do.
That's such good advice, Brooke. It really is, because I just, I think the system, the way it is at the moment, it just doesn't seem to be set up for young people to actually know how to navigate, and it's overwhelming. Like, as you said, how many young people have a GP that they feel comfortable walking into without mum or dad? Like,
yeah, I'm pretty sure I would still go into the doctor with my mum or dad if I could.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, look, it's really good advice. And, I think the other thing I'm hearing is that idea of persevering, that if you don't strike the right person straight up, and not a lot of people do, sadly, that you just need to kind of keep going. So, and what about friends? What about other people around you? What sort of role do you think they played?
I think that I have always had a really small circle of friends, and I've always been very close with my family. So it was really a bounce off effect when it came to my family, because I knew that mum was going through the same thing as me. So honestly, it comes down to talking about it. If you're not talking about it, then you're just going to bottle it up and you explode. And I've definitely exploded a lot of times.
Yeah. Do you think, and I guess this is something too, do you think when you're all going through something like that together, one of the reasons sometimes I guess we don't talk about it is because we know they're going through it too. And sometimes it's that fear of, but they've got enough on their plate. They don't want to hear that I'm struggling. Was that ever something that came up?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like I said, I was always the glue with the family. I was almost relied on to be like that. So I think everyone was kind of like, oh, Brooke's fixing everything, she must be fine. But I wasn't filling my cup at all. So I think you just assume that people are okay because you're going through the same thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking back now, that moment where you realized, look, I'm not okay, do you have any regrets in that?
I feel like we should have, as a family, done more group sessions, because I think we all individually, like the kids went to therapy by themselves, and sometimes mum would go in, but I think as a family it would have been really great if we all did something together so we knew how to support each other properly.
Yeah, that's benefit of hindsight, right? We look back and think, oh, if only that had been sort of different. But, I think it took a lot of courage for you to be able to sort of say, look, I'm actually not okay. And I think that's an amazing message. And I think it's one that we really need to get out there, that, we can't always be the strong one. In fact,
No.
we shouldn't always be the strong one. We need to be held sometimes, and we need to have people there for us. That's such a really inspiring, Brooke. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with people? Is there any one last tip or anything you'd like to kind of finish off with?
I think, honestly, it comes down to acknowledgement and talking, because I don't think without that we can continue this message and obviously help ourselves and help the people around us.
Yeah, awesome message. Brooke, thank you. You're an absolute star.
My pleasure. Like I said, I'm so happy to be here and spread the awareness.
Oh, thank you. Love it. And thanks for wearing your shirt and your pin as well. It was awesome to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining. Awesome. Gosh, what a message, hey? Look, I think one of the things that really hit me, well, lots of things with Brooke's story was, when you first reach out for help, and if you have an experience where you're not validated or where you don't feel that someone's listening to you, that can be enough to make you think, I'm not trying anymore. And I get that. I really get it. I think I can really relate to that. And I'm imagining, or I'm wondering whether a lot of you can relate to that as well. And the message is, don't give up. Keep trying. Sometimes you've got to find the right fit. Sometimes you've got to keep going. And then, you'll find someone that actually does get it. It's really hard to do, but definitely worth persevering. Very, very brave of Brooke to share that. I would really, really love it if Rikki is Rikki here? She's here. I think she's on the phone. Oh, this is old school now. We're going old school. We've got her on the phone. That's really old school. Thank you. Here she is on one of these devices. Hey, Rikki, are you there?
Hey, yeah, I'm here. I got it on the live stream thing as well. It's working now.
Oh, it's working now. Does that mean we can actually see your beautiful face?
Yeah.
I'm going to hang up the phone now and talk to you there.
Okay.
Yay! How are you? Oh no, we don't have audio. We'll fix it. Hang in there. I'm sure we'll fix it. It's much better to see you, but we want to hear you as well. Try saying your name. See if we can hear you. Oh, don't tell me we've lost her again. This is what happens when you live in regional, guys. It's things don't work according to plan. We had Rikki, I mentioned before, we chatted together on Channel 10 this morning, and both of the hosts just kept talking about how awesome she was. So we really it'd be lovely if we could get her on the chat.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Maybe we should just stick with the phone, hey?
Yeah, I think that'll be best. It's all having a mental breakdown.
Oh, the joys of living regional, hey? And the tyranny of distance, as Darren said. Very, very true. It is the tyranny of distance. So you've had it's not just been a busy day for you, it's been a busy few days, hasn't it? How are you going?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going really well, thank you.
That's awesome. So look, I know you've told your story a few times now, but for all of our listeners here, some of them may not have had the privilege of actually hearing you share. But I guess one of the things that I would really like to ask you is, why is this important to you? Why is, end youth suicide important for you?
It's important to me because I've lived through it myself. Not only that, it's an ongoing severe issue in today's society. There's so many young people, not even just young people, even adults, young people younger than 15, they all suffer with it for their own different reasons. And it's important to try and put the word out there that everyone can help and it's okay to reach out for help.
Yeah. So, Rikki, if you wouldn't mind sort of maybe sharing a little bit of your story and maybe what helped for you.
Well, I suffered myself through suicide. I tried attempting to take my own life quite a few times. I did it in different ways. Like, I tried self-harming myself. I tried overdosing, starving myself for weeks at a time. But I realized I didn't want to die. I just wanted the pain to stop. And I realized that my life isn't worthless and people do love and care about me. And if I did take my life, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, and I wouldn't have the life that I do. And what helped me get through it was the peer support from youth and such. Just knowing that I wasn't alone and other people go through the same things that I do, it helped me so much. Knowing that I'm not alone and I can reach out for help. People do love and care about me, and I wasn't crazy. The stuff that I was going through, it wasn't normal, and I wasn't crazy like I was being told that I was.
Yeah. How much does feeling alone and feeling isolated, how much do you think that kind of impacts this?
It impacted me a whole lot when I was going through it, because I felt like I had nobody to turn to. There was no hope for me. I would not be able to get any help at all. So being isolated in the middle of the scrub, it impacts so much. And we definitely need to get more support systems out into the bushland. Yeah. Like, the only support systems that we really have is school, and not everybody trusts school. Like, if you, let's say, this is a bit heavy, but let's say you've been sexually assaulted or something, you can't go to the school with that because they have to take that further. Yeah. And if you don't want it taken further, like, they have to do it because it's their job. Yeah. So there's stuff around sort of confidentiality and trust, isn't there, that maybe is a barrier, do you think, for young people reaching out? Absolutely. Not everyone wants to take everything further. They just need somebody to listen. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody to listen, hey. I mean, I guess, if I was to sort of say to you now, let's just say there's someone listening that's kind of maybe worried about somebody. They might be worried about a loved one. They might have noticed a few little signs. What do you think would be the best advice for someone in that situation? Just listen. Like, don't say anything. Just sit there and take a step back and listen, and really take into consideration what they're saying, because maybe you didn't know this, maybe you weren't aware of it, but it's happening. It's how they feel. It's their reality. Yeah. Is it our job to fix it? No, absolutely not. It's not your job to fix it. It's their own job to fix it, but it helps when you're there to support. Absolutely. It's the power of listening, isn't it? And just validating what someone's going through. And sometimes you don't even have to understand, do you? You just need to kind of hear it. Exactly. Sometimes somebody just needs you to sit there and listen. Yeah. Is there, this is a hard question. Is there a wrong thing to do you think? Is there something that you would think, oh gosh, that would be really unhelpful, or I would probably advise someone not to do this if they're worried? It's a hard question. Can you elaborate, please? So I'm just thinking, when people are worried about someone, sometimes you can fall into that thinking of, oh, maybe I just need to give them space, maybe, and it's easy to take it personally, they're not returning my calls, or they keep saying they don't want to come out and hang with me. I guess I'm thinking about that and what kind of advice we could probably give to somebody who might be thinking that way. I mean, like, that's a hard situation. Like, unless you're in it yourself, I've been there quite a few times. I still do it today, believe it or not. But I reckon instead of taking it personally, take a step back, really think about it from the other person's perspective, and just think to yourself, I wonder if they're okay. Like, maybe there's a reason for this sort of behaviour, and just ask them if they're okay. That's exactly, I feel that too, Rikki. It's a really fine line, isn't it? Because sometimes people do need space, but we run the risk of making them feel like we don't care, don't we, if we just do nothing. So I think you're absolutely right. It's just that reaching out and saying, hey, no pressure.
here, if just sitting, I'm thinking of you, and you're not asking anything, just you're letting them know. And I think that's really good advice. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Rikki,
I still do it today.
Yeah, I do too. I sometimes like my space, and I kind of, I call it going into my cave. I sometimes go into my cave when I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I've got to remember that sometimes that makes people feel that I don't care, but it's not that. It's just that's how I kind of get my energy back, I suppose. So yeah, but you know what? It's communication, isn't it? It's just having that dialogue and being honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have to definitely agree with you.
Yeah. Well, Rikki, you've had a massive day. Thank you so much for hopping online with us. And gosh, also thank you for everything that you do for Youth in Search. You're just amazing. I'm always inspired by our leaders. You guys are just, I don't have enough words. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to people that might be listening, or you don't have to, but is there anything else that?
Yeah, I just want to say it's okay to reach out for help even if you feel like you don't want to, or that you can't, or nobody actually wants to listen or they care.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's always people out there for you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who they are, where they're from, as long as they love and care about you, they got you.
Oh, they got you. I love it. Such good advice. And that's something that Brooke said as well. So, you guys are on the same page. So that's just, really good advice. Rikki, awesome. Thank you so much again. No doubt I'll be seeing you. I hope so. I'll be seeing you very soon, or at least be talking with you very soon. But I really appreciate you for persevering to try and come onto the call with us tonight. I know it's really hard where you are and your internet's crappy, and but it's awesome to have you, and it's awesome to hear your voice.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolute pleasure. And we will chat very, very soon.
No worries. That's great.
Thanks, Rikki. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye. I really hope everyone heard that. That was awesome. And I think, I think there's a lot of take homes from Rikki as well. And I think that idea of persevering, it's just something that we need to remember, that sometimes even in our deepest, darkest moments where we think no one cares, sometimes that's just our mind playing tricks on us. Sometimes we need to step outside that, or just put ourselves out there, which is really hard when we're feeling a lot of pain and vulnerability. But sometimes that's actually the best thing we can do. I've now got another one of our amazing leaders, Chris and Rikki, on the line with us. Now, Chris, you're kind of like the games wizard, I reckon.
I wouldn't say the games wizard. I think just a creative mind.
Okay, yeah, let's go with that. For everybody that doesn't know Chris and Rikki, if you ever wanted to kind of know how to get a room going and how to get a room pumping and make people laugh, Chris is your guy. So I've had the pleasure of being involved in some of his kind of games before, and I tell you what, it's just a ton of fun. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Leanne.
It's awesome to have you. And you've been with you. How many years have you been with Youth in Search?
So I first was a participant at Youth in Search when I was 13. So I'm 30 now. So I'm not very good at math, but I think that's 17 years.
I think that works. 17 years. That's a long time, isn't it? Jeez.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, only talk about what you're comfortable talking about, obviously, but what brought you to Youth in Search?
Originally, what brought me to Youth in Search is I had a broken family. My parents had an extremely nasty divorce, a lot of fighting and stuff like that. I was kind of forced to live with my mum in those times, and I got up to no good, but also I was in a home of neglect and abuse. My mother neglected me, didn't really look after me, didn't look after my health, which actually it made it worse when I went to school because I didn't have washed clothes. I didn't have what other kids have. So then the bullying onset. And with the bullying onset, my behaviour escalated from there. And I kind of got pushed into Youth in Search in a hard and nasty way after I got myself into a bit of trouble. But it's with a bit of tough love and everything, I'm so happy I did it. It ended up changing my whole entire life around. And it was right at that pinnacle time of becoming a teenager to a young male. It laid those roots down for me, and it got my line of track in the right site, and it's created who I am today. I think I'm pretty good. in a nice way, but also, you know, I've got to amazing things since Youth in Search and being involved in it.
Do you think, gosh, this is going to be a hard question. Were there any defining moments for you? Were there any kind of times during your journey where you can look back and go, oh gosh, that really, you know, made a difference, or that one thing or whatever really kind of seemed to give me the kick I needed?
I think there was a kick in a hustle session where I was kind of sitting, you know, like we were sitting in parent adolescent, and it was I was sitting in my own shit. You know, I was depressed, I was upset, I was suicidal, and I was sitting on it, and I was sitting on it. I wasn't dealing with it, and someone gave me a huge kick in the ass, and kind of said, you know, because I kept trying things, expecting a different result, and he said to me, he goes, you can't live life doing the same thing expecting a different result. And I don't know what it was, I don't know what happened, but it was just that kick I needed to get myself on that right track, that moved me out of that pile of crap, you know, out of that suicidal mind. But, you know, I was obviously, I had a lot of hand. It was a long journey. It wasn't just then, but it flipped a switch in my head. That I just can't sit and dwell on my stuff. I need to move forward. And as a young male, it's hard. You know, being at that age, 13, 14, you know, it's tough. We don't like to talk about our feelings. Our feelings are suppressed. It's okay to everyone, you know, it's people saying, hey, if you need something, you need, but at the end of the day, we're taught to suppress those feelings and hide them.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part being a young male in that aspect. So I, you know, obviously started sharing, and it was scary. It was very, very scary at the time, but I'm so glad I did, because it made me feel wanted and normal. In the aspect, there's other people out there, and I started attaching myself to mentors and people who've kind of been through similar stuff. And that's actually what got me through my, you know, a lot of my stuff was finding people. I realized that if I want to be like somebody, I've got to learn from them. I just can't sit here going, what about me? And that was a huge turning point in my whole life.
Wow. I think what you said about young men, you know, like 3/4 of all suicides are male, you know, like that's alarming. 3/4, like that's just mind blowing. So, you know, as a young male who did reach out, gosh, you know, you're right. It's really tough. You're really up against it. What would you say, I guess, to any other young male out there that might be kind of thinking secretly or whatever or not, you know, to reach out?
It's definitely a tough one being a young male in even today's society and reaching out and expressing feelings, because, you know, there's still a stigma to it.
Yeah.
There is still a stigma. And sometimes just understanding, you know, your mates, that's the most important thing, understanding your mates. I know some of my friends now and even younger, they didn't have to talk to me. They just need me to sit beside them. They need me to go to the park with them. They need me to do this. And understanding what your needs and wants are, that is the most important thing. That's, you know, you might not want to express your feelings to your mates, but, you know, and you might be down on you're down your luck or down on something, but just hanging out with friends, you know, or going to your mate's house, going, man, you're okay, you know, and a lot of times they're going to say fine, but, you know, just being there is the most important thing, and being a presence, I think was a huge pinnacle in my life. People being a presence there, just going, hey, I remember a counsellor didn't even ask me what I was doing one time. We just went and played basketball.
Awesome. Yeah.
You know, those little things, and just adjusting what people's needs and wants are, and understanding those foundations is a really good thing.
And having someone that will meet you where you're at, not imposing on you where they think you should be, or what they think you should be doing. What do you think about, you know, like I'm thinking about boys, young men being vulnerable with their mates. Even as I say that out loud, I know that that's not generally, I think things are starting to change, but generally that's something that a lot of young men, young boys go, oh, I'm not going to why not talk to my mates about how I feel? But how important do you think that is?
Oh, it's massive. It's absolutely massive. You know, if you know, even with Australian culture, you go, "G'day, mate. How you doing? All right?" You tell them how they're doing. It's a huge thing. But you got to have the power going, you know what, mate? I'm actually doing shit today. I'm doing terrible. Or, yeah, I'm okay. You know, I've got some stuff going on. You know, and a lot of young males are trying to avoid that. you know, and it just as a friend, you go, you know, if you're having a rough time, I'm here. Otherwise, let's go do something. Let's go fishing. Let's go do something, and break up that mindset. Sometimes just breaking that mindset and help breaking that cycle is a huge thing. We don't have to sit and talk about our feelings. We don't.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's allowing that person to choose what they need in that moment, isn't it? And you're totally right. Sometimes it is just about playing a game of basketball or going to watch a movie where you don't have to talk. Sometimes that's even more powerful, isn't it? Where you can just sit in a movie and not talk, but at least you're there.
Absolutely. And it's just feeling that, having that, you know, when I was growing up and going through those thoughts, having somebody just go, hey, I'm here for you, was such a huge empowering thought. I didn't have to sit there and say, hey, I'm feeling this. Hey, I was abused, or, you know, like, you know, my mum hit me last night. I didn't have to say that. All I had to sit there was go, let's play some basketball. Let's relieve some steam, let's relieve some stress. And then in those moments, those conversations open up. And I think that's a huge empowerment moment for young males, and other people, you know, like there's nothing wrong with sitting there going, just trying to adjust that mindset a little bit, and break that cycle. I'm feeling crap. I'm feeling suicidal, and moving yourself in that spiral. Sometimes just somebody stepping in there and helping reverse that spiral that's all you need.
You've just made me reflect on when I was a teenager and I went through some crap at home. My parents split and it was pretty nasty. I was probably 13 when they split. And I remember I was thinking about this today, and I've got some older siblings that were awesome, but without a doubt, the people that got me through that were my friends. And it's because of exactly what you just said. I didn't talk about what was going on with my mum and dad. I didn't, maybe sometimes, but it was just the fact that they were there and they helped me break out, because I get in my head all the time. It's probably one of my worst traits, and I sit in it. And just to have them go, hey, Leanne, let's go and watch a movie. Hey, let's go for a swim. Let's go for a bike ride. It just got me out of that. And I knew they were there. I knew that if I wanted to talk, I could, but I didn't have to. And you're absolutely right. I think reflecting on that right now, I think that was probably the best thing that they did for me.
I think absolutely. And being a young teenager, a young male, you might not be able to know how to start that conversation.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. And just by going off and doing something, you've started that conversation. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
So I think out there with a lot of young males going, how do I start that with my mate? How do I do that? Or how do I, hey, just go do something.
Yeah.
There's nothing that is the start right there. You don't have to sit there. And a lot of the times we say, hey, are you okay? They're going to say, all right. But just knowing some stuff in the background, or they might not be doing, you might not know anything in the background, but just going, hey, let's go do something. You've started that conversation right there, and that trust gets built up. And then, you never know, one day they might have that conversation with you, but it works two-way street. You have to be ready for that conversation.
Yeah.
And if you're not ready for that conversation, you need to reach out and get some help from somebody else going, hey, I think this conversation is going to happen. I don't know how to take it or where to take it or what to do. But just by being there and being a friend is the most important thing, I think.
Yeah. Look, and I know you're really passionate about this, so I'm going to ask you the question, what can we do? How do we get to zero suicides? What role do you think the Youth in Search can play in helping us get to that zero figure?
Look, that's tough. That's extremely tough.
Yeah.
That's a huge goal. I wish we could get to zero tomorrow.
I know.
But we've got to start with our youth. And that's where we're starting at Youth in Search. We're starting right at the basis. I've been through the program. I'm 30 years old now. I've got a wife, I've got a kid in the way. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But it all starts with somebody just being there for you. So that's the most important thing. We've got to start there and work our way up and going, hey, mate, it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
And just being there for your mates. And that's the most important thing.
Chris, as always, you've given us a million different little pearls of wisdom through that. It's awesome. And I love as a young male, what the message that you can bring of hope and sharing your vulnerability. I just really, really hope that, and I'm sure it has, reached people out there to get them to think, you know what, maybe I should open up. Maybe that's actually an okay thing to do. So look, I can't thank you enough for coming on and chatting with us tonight. You are such a busy person. So I really appreciate you taking the time out to come and chat with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Leanne.
Anytime, and we will be chatting soon because we have plans, don't we? We have plans.
Well, we've got some serious plans.
Oh, I'm so excited! I can't wait. Thanks so much, Chris. I will chat to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, you know what? That was a really good segue into our next guests, because I think that the power of mateship and the power of sharing your vulnerability with your friends, particularly as males, I think is super important. So with that, I am going to bring in Swag on the Beat. I've been so excited to talk to you. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you? Wanted to be here. Thanks so much.
Awesome to see you. I've been on your Instagram page today. I tell you, talk about what we need. Well, this is a serious topic that we're talking about, right? But I think with everything that's going on around us in the world, we need a laugh. And boy, do you deliver that in spades. So thank you for doing everything that you do, because there's a massive, massive place for it. This is a serious topic though, right? We're talking about youth suicide. And I know you're 3 mates from high school. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, from high school.
Wow. So, gosh, you must get on each other's nerves sometimes, don't you?
All the time. We've never sat this close to each other. It's horrible. Yeah, almost funny.
So tell me, why is this an important issue for you?
Well, I mean, we have a history of being involved and interested in mental health. I studied psychology and have a psychology degree, and have used that to start a course with my sister that's about putting mental health awareness back into schools and making it available to as many people as possible, where there might not be the facility that an expensive or well-off school will have. So that's been one of the main, uses of that. But as far as our sort of interest and awareness of mental health is kind of when we saw the reception that some of our videos would get from people and the messages you would get from people, you sort of think, oh, wow, we're having a little bit of an impact on something. And that sort of helps motivate you to do it more, and it gives a really nice kind of holistic approach to being silly on camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess, how important do you think it is to have, I guess, different ways that young people can connect with other people? I mean, whether it's through humor, whether it's through music, is that important, do you think?
Yeah, completely. I mean, especially in the last 2 years, the amount of pressure that's been put on the youth, they can't go see their friends. School doesn't exist anymore in the traditional way. There's almost no, none of the usual avenues that people can go to find their usual releases that Chris was talking about, and some of the motivation for us doing what we could do is we knew that anyone at any point in time can view it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of nice, I think. Yeah.
And have you had people reaching out to you that are struggling? Have you had those kinds of comments or messages?
Yeah, we have. Sort of makes it all worth it in the end if you get a message from a fan who's over in Western Australia, where we're in Melbourne, or over the other side of the world, or even just down the road, and you think we're having a tangible impact on people's lives, and we just really appreciate the opportunity to be able to do that. And if we can keep making people laugh, and sort of like Chris was saying, if it's just taking their mind off other things that's going on, that's a massive thing for us, and we're really glad to be able to do that.
How do you respond, though, I guess, when someone, or if someone reaches out to you and they might even sort of be alluding to wanting to harm themselves or whatever, how do you respond to that?
Well, a lot of the messages we get are mainly just like sort of having a tough day. A few of your videos helped made us feel better. But I mean, for work, I'm a qualified teacher as well, so I do that a bit. So I sort of understand with that, detecting the early signs and like mandatory reporting is a thing that you would do in that situation. So I guess with that, if they did say something specifically like that, you would pass it on to someone like the police. If they had a certain a plan or did say that specifically. But I guess with the messages we receive, they're mainly just about having a tough day, having a tough time. Your videos help, which is really pleasing. But yeah, if it was that serious situation, you would pass it on to a higher authority.
Yeah. And so I guess as a teacher, are you currently working as a teacher
Yeah, I'm currently teaching in primary school, yeah.
Primary school, yeah. And well, as you know, we've got a significant number of mental health issues appear before the age of 14, and some even earlier, like in those primary school years. So, do you have any kind of tips or whatever on when you would become concerned? Because, you know, kids kind of can get a bit withdrawn sometimes. They can get a bit sad. This is a really hard question, I know, but just thinking as a teacher, when do you get worried?
Well, I think kids will sometimes, they'll either come to you and say everything that happened, or they'll try and hide it. And I guess you've got a legal responsibility as a teacher, but even you, as an adult not working as a teacher, you would have a moral responsibility. But I think tiredness or not getting sleep is one that is obvious, but maybe hard to link back to family issues or mental health. But that one, as well as things as simple as a hard life at home, such as, you know, dirty clothes or ripped clothes, when, you know, in those situations the school can provide uniform, and they're not getting that, they're sort of getting that neglect at home. But I think tiredness and even attendance at schools are just a simple but really important one that you would just monitor, and then if that continues, you would then speak to the student or the family.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, moving, I guess, to those sort of later years and those sort of teenage years as mates, you know, I guess going back to what Chris was saying about the importance of having mates around you and you know, being open and honest about how you're feeling if you're struggling. Is that something that the three of you have done together? Like, is that something that you've ever shared between the three of you, or?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely lean on each other all the time. Because, you know, you're being quite vulnerable when you're sending us basically just being silly, and then thousands of people see it. You know, you sort of need that strength and foundation to trust each other that we're all in this together, and it's not kind of being hung out to dry. So I think that's sort of brought the three of us a lot closer, knowing that we can trust each other in this kind of novel or, you know, odd thing that we've started doing.
Yeah. And look, I know this is probably a very different question, but I'm asking it because I know it's a real issue, is online bullying and trolling and that kind of thing. Have you ever been subjected to that? Have you ever sort of copped any of that online?
We definitely do get a bit. I think I'm sure we have all seen it out there compared to a lot of the stuff going around. We get off pretty light, but we do see a lot of it. So you have to be able to switch off to it, and you have to be able to recognize that behind a screen, people they don't act in a way that truly reflects how they feel. That sort of anonymity acts like a bit of a shield. So you sort of learn to take everything with a grain of salt that you read online. And while that's very hard, and obviously you get really personal comments and things that maybe highlight things you've thought about before, but just once again having mates that you can lean on and talk to about it, and just taking everything with a grain of salt. People will say stuff online that they don't really feel, and if anything, it's a reflection of their insecurities rather than and just trying to be projected onto you.
Look, I think that's such great advice, and you know, the importance of actually speaking up about it, like you said, and not feeling like you've got to sit there and hold it yourself. Particularly if you're being targeted, you know, and we see it a lot. We see it way too much, you know, and you're right. It says more about the other person. We can say that, but I guess for the person on the end that's copping that barrage of abuse or trolling, like you said, reach out, sort of tell someone about it.
Yeah, and on that, it makes a lot of difference when you just verbalize it and you tell someone else. For example, if I tell one of my friends what I read, and then even reading it out loud, or their response of, obviously that's not true. It's just good to sort of talk to someone about it, and that can make you feel a bit better about it.
Yeah. So I guess for people out there, what's, I guess, your sort of tips or advice on how to approach someone that you're worried about?
Well, I mean, I think what Chris said for the male contingent of the community is golden, really. I mean, he's seemingly the professional and has been in the space for much longer than we have. So I think what he was saying, and Rikki and Brooke, their ability to just be open on such a big platform is admirable. And I think, I mean, a lot of the advice that they were giving is we would back that and just echo that, what they've said, really, I think.
And I think going back to what Brooke said about getting to that moment where you kind of become, it's that honesty with yourself, isn't it, to say, you know what, I'm actually not okay. And And I guess once you sort of say that to yourself and you say it out loud, wherever you might be, I guess that can be a defining moment, can't it? Because then you have a choice. All right, I either sit in this on my own, which is what Chris was talking about, or I reach out and I kind of talk to a mate. So I guess my final question, looking at the youth mental health space, youth suicide, how important do you think that kind of mateship and that peer support is in helping get to that zero suicide?
I think support between friendship is one of the most important things. Just having someone to lean on and someone to go to. Like Chris sort of said, it wasn't generally going to open up to mates and saying everything that's happened, but it's just having that friend that's there that you can just play basketball with or watch a movie with. I think that's probably one of the most things, and if that isn't friends, hopefully that would be family or even just someone that you can depend on. But I think that just helps you verbalize it and them hopefully just show support, and then you can both understand how you can get help or, what pretty much what action to take from there.
Yeah. That's, oh gosh, it is good advice, isn't it? Because I think sometimes, the other thing that I've noticed certainly in my years is this idea that when anybody, not just a young person, but when someone is struggling, that we make it about them and that there's something wrong with them. And when it comes to youth suicide and when it comes to, suicide in general, there's nothing wrong with the problem sits out here. It sits in a society that somehow allows this to happen, which kind of means it's up to all of us, isn't it? That's why we're having these conversations. It's not, there's nothing wrong with the person. There's something wrong with the society that actually enables this to happen. And that's where we need to start, isn't it? And having those kinds of open conversations with our mates is a good place to start, right?
Definitely.
Ideal.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of say or anything I might have missed or?
Well, I mean, just thank you so much, Leanne, for having us on. And
Really
we did a little collaboration middle of last year that we loved and honoured to be on this live stream. And, we've all signed the petition. We think it's fantastic. We've been through the website multiple times and think it's just an unbelievable program.
Awesome.
We think it's, incredible work you're doing. And Chris and Rikki and Brooke, they're just absolute gems, and think that this is something really worth getting behind, hence why we're here.
Oh, look, it's been awesome chatting to you. And I think you mentioned the petition, and I haven't mentioned that yet. So thank you for bringing that up, because that's really important. We do have a petition that people can get to on our website. So, and those signatures are the things that we can actually use to help lobby government and to really sort of make sure this stays on the agenda. This is our End Youth Suicide Week, but it doesn't end on Friday. So this isn't a conversation that happens till Friday and then we want to move on. So we really want to take this to the next step. So having collaborations with people like yourselves and, really getting that petition out there. We want to get as many signatures as possible, but I really hope that we can collaborate with you guys again. And you know what we need to do? We need to get you guys to come along to one of our Melbourne workshops.
Definitely.
Let's do it.
We're in.
Yeah, you need to come along with some guests and really kind of, be a part of what happens at our workshops and at our camps. I think you'd really, really love it. So we should stay in touch and work out how we can make that happen in a COVID-safe way.
We said wear a mask.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, we're very big on that. We had to go virtual, as you would imagine, through COVID. Yep. And gosh, I take my hat off to our young leaders who did training virtually, like days and days of just being on a screen. It was just mind-blowing. So we've got some very dedicated young leaders. And, yeah, it would be great to get you guys along and really sort of get to see what we do and get to meet some of our incredible leaders and our incredible young people.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Definitely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Brilliant. I'll get my people to speak to your people.
Good.
Thanks so much for coming on. It's been awesome, and I follow you on Insta, so I'll be certainly looking at your feed, waiting for my next laugh. It's unreal. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, as I said, if you haven't jumped across Swag on the Beat, honestly, it's definitely worth it. Gosh, as I said to them at the beginning, we really need a laugh right now. That things are tough, and we've all been doing it really, really tough. But this is a really serious issue that it's been fantastic to have their support, Brooke's support. We've heard from Rikki, we've heard from Chris. We've got some other of our amazing leaders that have been doing some awesome stuff in the media for us this week, and really sort of passing on that message that we really need to get to zero suicides, and we're not going to stop until we do. It is possible. I want to ask now if there's any questions. Anyone has anything they want to ask, please come through the chat. Our guests have left, but if there was anything anyone wanted to ask one of our guests, I'm sure I can pass it on, or if there's anything you want to ask me, I'm here ready to answer any of your questions. We're just about out of time, so but we've always got time for questions if there's any. This is where I need that elevator music, where we can just have a bit of music while we wait for people to decide whether or not they want to ask. One thing I will sort of suggest and make a point of before we finish up is, and I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, that for anybody that is struggling with their mental health or is, you know, thinking of suicide or worried about someone, there is help out there. And I really want to take this opportunity to put these numbers up on the screen for everybody to write down. So I've got Nina in the background madly working on the tech to kind of make sure this sort of happens. But there we go. So right there, we've got the number for Lifeline, Kids Helpline, and the Suicide Callback Service. So really important numbers for everybody to keep. We regularly kind of post. You will see these numbers appear on our page, but please write them down and please pass them on. We have had some pretty heavy discussions tonight. So, you know, I'm sure you might all be feeling fine now, but sometimes these things kind of sit with us. And so please remember that those numbers are there and they're there to listen. They really, really are. So please remember that that's available to you. Don't have any questions. I had a question earlier. Yeah, no, it's disappeared. I guess I wanted to just sort of make the point about that there are so many other programs and services out there that are doing an amazing job. And one of the things that Youth in Search do is we partner with organisations. So, you know, it's important to remember that we're not an instead of, we're an as well as, you know, that's how I like to think about it. So lots of young people come to us and they're already involved in other organisations. They might be sort of already seeing a counsellor, but we will work with anybody if we can. So, you know, we can provide that peer-to-peer. We also have caseworkers and social workers in certain areas that can work more intensely with young people if they need that. So I've had a question come through. How about young people or parents who may want to connect with Youth in Search? So look, really head to our website. We have a number that you can call, which actually takes you through to our admin. And from there, you will get sent into the right direction, depending on where you're from. But essentially, that's the first place to kind of call. Send us an email, send us we don't have a traditional intake service. I think lots of primary care-based services have an intake number. That's not how we work. And I know particularly our social workers like to actually have conversations with people rather than just take details and then we do it that way. So we like to think we're very approachable. So if anyone has a question or something that they would like to know if we can help, please reach out, send us an email, give us a call, and someone will get back to you with that advice. I've had another question. What do I do if I call the suicide callback service and I don't hear from anyone? It's actually happened to someone. Oh, I can't imagine that would be. Look, I even had someone once tell me that they were on hold for an enormous amount of time. So, look, I think persevere. I think that's the message that we've actually had from a lot of our guests tonight is if you call the suicide callback service and you don't hear from anyone, call Lifeline, call the Kids Helpline. Keep trying, don't give up. And I think that's the number one message from all of our wonderful guests that we've had this evening. I've had another one. Is self-harming a bid for attention seeking? Look, unfortunately, that's part of the stigma around suicide and self-harm. And the short answer to that is absolutely not. We should always be concerned if a young person's harming themselves, and there's lots of ways that young people can harm themselves. No, it's not a bid for attention. It's a cry for help. So by no means should we be kind of putting that down to attention seeking. That's one of the myths, I guess, and one of the contributors to stigma. Another one, yeah, look, there's tons of those, but no, it's definitely not attention seeking. It's someone that's distressed. People self-harm because they're distressed and they're going through a lot. So that's what we need to connect with. We need to try and understand where that's coming from. How can youth and parents reach out to Youth in Search? Yeah, look, as I said, I think the best place to start is our website. definitely go there. We've got an Instagram page, we've got a Facebook page, but go to our website and you'll get the information that you need there. Email, telephone, that's probably the best place to start. Just seeing if there's any more questions or if I can think of anything that anyone might want to ask. That means I'm a mind reader, right? I'm not a mind reader. So I just want to thank everybody. And look, we're out of time anyway. So I guess I'd really like to wrap up by saying that this isn't the end of the conversation. This is the beginning of the conversation. And as I said earlier, you know, this is the second half of our End Youth Suicide Week, but this isn't where the conversation ends. This is actually where it starts. So we really, really need to keep the wheels turning on this. I also want to take an opportunity to thank everybody who has posted, shared, everybody who has signed our petition so far. And it's not too late. Please pass it on to all your friends and all your networks. But I really want to give a massive thank you also to our government supporters. We've got some amazing supporters out there where there's been a lot of MPs that I've seen in Parliament wearing their little kind of blue pins. And it's really, really wonderful to see that certainly in Parliament, both sides of government, all sides of government, that we've got a lot of support. And we really, really, really are grateful for that. So thank you. So the number 1-800-805-635. So that's the best place to start when it comes to reaching out to Youth in Search. So I'll say that again, 1-800-805-635. So, and you've got those numbers on the side. I hope you've written those down, just because I know that sometimes this stuff can be a bit triggering, and sometimes it's not until tomorrow, later tonight, that you might think, oh, yeah, I'm probably, that's not sitting well with me. So I just want to, make sure I make that point. Have I forgotten anything? Probably. I just want to say thank you for this. This isn't our last live stream. We're going to do more, and I'd love more input from our leaders. And I know that they'll be so excited to join in the conversation, and maybe we might even get one of our amazing leaders to host the next one. Who wants to hear me? It's really boring. So let's get rid of the so-called experts and get the real experts in the chair hosting the next one. So you know, we've got some amazing, not just our leaders, but even our young participants who I reckon could really, really do a great job. So I guess that's about it. 7:35. I've done well. I thought we'd go way over. But again, final thank you to everybody for listening. I really, really hope that this has inspired people to continue the conversation and to really kind of keep this at the top of the agenda. Keep signing the petition. Keep talking about ending youth suicide. And like I said at the very, very beginning, together we can get to zero, but we need to do it as a team. So thanks everyone for joining, and enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you. Bye.